Before this video starts, I want to give a shout out to Thunderblob for being my first commenter. I really appreciate the positive attention, and that is what inspired me to make this video. This video is about the mice quotient. I will teach you guys about what it means, how it's relevant, and how you can use it in writing. Disclaimer: a lot of this information can be found on thewritersource.com. So the mice quotient is a concept founded by Orson Scott Card, and it's essentially an outline for how you can fulfill the promises you make, inadvertently or not, to your reader when they read the first line. Mice stands for milieu, which is setting, idea, character, and event. The big idea is that if you can start with one thing, you can end with that same thing to make a satisfying ending. For example, if I started a book with a sentence about a familiar place, I would need to end the book with a sentence about that same place to tie it all together. A good example of this is The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. It begins with the Hobbit being in a hole, focusing on that hole, and ends with the Hobbit returning to that hole in his reverse slice of life. If you were to begin a book with an idea, you'd need to end it with that same idea or question being resolved. For example, if you wrote Game of Thrones, you'd start with, "Wow, ice zombies!" And you'd end with, "Okay, no more ice zombies." Or just make them work well in society for that happy ending. Well, I don't know. I've never read or watched Game of Thrones. If you started a book with a character, which is my favorite concept, you'd start with focusing on that character and end with highlighting that a character's development and end of their arc. For example, if you start with the story of an accept girl, you'd have to end it with how her journeys have changed her for the better. The same applies to events, which is starting a story with some crazy thing happening that rocks society, even if it's only by a little bit. You're gonna need to end it with that same thing being resolved or everybody dying. If you want an example of that, just read one of Shakespeare's works. Now that you understand what the mice quotient is, you have to pick one thing to start with. If you're writing a complex novel, there's a huge likelihood that you're going to use all four, and if you do, you will need to end them as you began them. For example, if you start with milieu, idea, character, and event, these issues are going to need to be resolved or highlighted in the opposite order, because that is the opposite focus of your book. As in, whatever you start with is your focus, and whatever you end with is your focus. So you need to end the fourth issue close to when it's revealed, the third and second after that, and then the first. The first introduced is going to be the first extroduced. If it doesn't make sense, here's an example. If Sally lives on the seashore, the book ends with Sally on the same seashore. If Sally has seashells that she can't sell, she will find out how to sell them right before she goes back to the seashore. If Sally is mean, she will stop being mean right before she figures out how to sell the seashells. If there's a hurricane that is somehow relevant to the plot, that hurricane will end right before Sally figures out how to get grip. Here's a diagram. For me, it's a lot easier to make everything on a diagram before I properly outline it, and it seems like that's all I have to teach you. So I hope you guys liked the video. Mice Quotient is awesome, and it'll satisfy both you and the readers when you reread your work for the third time as you edit, and as the readers reread your amazing book for their third time as well. Peace out!